morning, boys and girls. It's Monday morning. Time to find out what happens to Poppy. I got a little secret to share with you. I cheated. It's actually Saturday at my house. I'm reading 2 days early because I couldn't wait to find out what happened. But you'll find out on a Monday, chapter 20, Poppy. Now remember, she snuck in and out of the beaver lodge, but she plans on going back to save Rye. Mr. Canad knows about her, so this could be dangerous, and I'm a little worried for her. The coldness of the water, its utter darkness, shocked Poppy. Not only did she not move, she didn't know which way to move. Instead, she sank, spiraling down. Unless she did something quickly, she would drown. She began to thrash wildly. Her frenzy got her nowhere. Still sinking, she tried to think herself into calmness, succeeding just enough to move her legs and arms in unison. Within moments, she bumped against some twigs. She grabbed hold. Her breath was giving out. Letting go of the twigs, she called frantically upward and forward, hoping she was clear of the lodge. Like a cork popping from a bottle, Poppy burst upon the pond surface. Splashing frantically, she gulped great draughts of air into her hungry lungs. She looked up. Through waterlogged eyes, she saw blurry bits of light. At first, she thought they were fireflies. Then she realized she was seeing stars. Never before had stars seemed so beautiful. She was out of the lodge. Now, however, she had to get to the shore. She doubted her ability to swim. Flailing, she tried to make some sense of where she was. She did see what appeared to be other lodges. She wanted to avoid them. As she floundered, she felt a bump on her head. Ready to defend herself, she whirled. It was only a chip of wood. Eagerly, she held on. It kept her afloat. Clinging to the chip, Poppy kicked vigorously. She began to move forward. Her progress was slow. Her energy was ebbing. Now and again, she rested her head on the wood chip. She forced herself to think of Rye, caged in the beaver's lodge. At least I'm free, she said to herself, and resumed kicking. 20 minutes later, she came to a lurching halt. In a daze, she looked up. Land rose before her. She had reached the shore. A wary Poppy stumbled out of the water. Once on land, she gave herself a vigorous shake, ridding herself of what felt like a ton of water. Much lighter, she laid down on the ground and cradled her head in her paws. Only then did she allow herself to feel the full depth of her exhaustion. Never again, she vowed, would she go into water. As she lay there, she thought of the imprisoned Rye and reviewed her plan. She would get another vine, longer than the one she had just used, and drop it down the vent hole. She would go down again and somehow get Rye out of the cage. Then the two of them would climb out. There was no other way, and she wanted it to happen quickly. Poppy hurried up the hill. By the time she reached the boulder, The pink glow of sunlight had begun to bloom upon the eastern horizon. Birds began to twitter madly. It was all as if a night of silence had been too much to bear, and there was a desperate need to make up for lost time. She considered the pond. As Poppy watched, a swarm of beavers emerged from the lodge where she knew Rye was being held. She studied them with intense anger. They were so large and powerful, and those teeth and huge tails. She hurried into the nest. The mice were astir, but moving about as though weighed by great burdens. No one looked up or around. Talk was minimal. Little tasks were being performed with minute attention. The family was preparing to move. "I'm back," Poppy announced. The mice paused in their work and looked around. "Ah, Poppy," Valerian said sadly. "I thought you had left us." "Not at all. I went to see Rye." "Rye? How did you do that?" Curly Dot called out. Poppy told them how she got into the beaver's lodge and of her subsequent visit with Rye. "He's not happy," she told them, "but he's all right." "But why did he even go there?" Clover asked. "He wanted to do something about the beavers." "Did he?" "No." Valerian's tail waved in agitation. "Why that mouse must always be trying to prove himself, I can't begin to imagine. And now, a prisoner, held for a ransom, the ransom being our moving away. Well, we're trying to go as quickly as we can." "I do have a plan to free him," Poppy offered. The nest became very still. "Miss Poppy," Valerian said, drawing himself up and speaking somberly, "ever since you came to our nest, you've been telling and doing some remarkable things. We don't doubt you are an exceptional creature. Perhaps living quietly and simply by the brook, we've become a tad shy of difficulty. No doubt the beavers have unnerved us too. But the truth is," Valerian concluded, "it would be better if we just gave in. Won't you even listen to my plan?" Valerian sighed. "I guess we can. You just mustn't expect us to do anything." As Rye's family stared at her with dull eyes and twitching ears, an uncomfortable Poppy stood in the middle of the nest. She felt some anger. These mice had been generous when she told them of Ragweed's death. Now that she was suggesting they do something to keep Rye from dying, they were not so hospitable. "I got into the beaver's main lodge," she told them anew, "by using a vent hole and a vine to drop down inside. Unfortunately, Rye and I couldn't break his cage. I need more teeth or paws. I'll need a few of you to join me when I return to the lodge with a longer vine." "Go into the beaver's lodge?" cried an alarmed mouse. "Right, the way I did." "Wouldn't that be dangerous?" called another. "Those beavers are so big. A swat of their tails. And what about those teeth?" still another said. "One bite and goodbye." Poppy held up a paw to still the objections. "I have a friend, my best friend. He came with me here from Dimwood Forest. Another mouse? Asked one of the youngsters. He's a porcupine. His name is Erith. Porcupine quills are very sharp. My friend is always losing his. I'll get some. When we go into the lodge, we'll each carry a quill to defend ourselves. One quill against all those beavers, said another. Exactly. Where is this friend of yours? Someone asked. Waiting for me up beyond the ridge. Valerian cleared his throat. Poppy, how many of us do you propose it will take to get Rye out? There's me, of course, she replied, but I'll need at least a couple of others. No one spoke. It was Clover who said, Poppy, perhaps you could get Rye out, but what about the beavers? They'll simply go on building. What will happen to the rest of us? I'm not sure, Poppy admitted, but I must free Rye. My dear, Clover said, I do wish I could believe your plan would be helpful. I truly do. But no, I can't. She turned to Valerian. Do you? She asked. Valerian gazed at his feet. It seems awful risky, he said gloomily. He looked up. And it sure will create a greater danger for the rest of us. No one spoke. Then, speaking gently, Poppy said, But, as I understand it, you've not resisted them at all. Once again, there was silence. Valerian cleared his throat. Poppy, he said, since this matter concerns the family, I think we need to talk this over privately. All right, Poppy said, trying to hide her disappointment. I'll go where my friend is waiting, gather up some quills and bring them back. When I do, you can tell me what you'd like to do. I think that would be best, Valerian agreed. In anger, Poppy ran up the entryway, took one more look down at the pond and the lodge where she knew Rye was being kept, then hurried up towards the ridge. She had no trouble finding the cottonwood where she had seen Erith go, but the porcupine was nowhere in sight. Uh-oh. He left, didn't he? Did you remember that? Chapter 21. Erith has more thoughts. Deep within the thicket, unable to move, Erith was thinking hard. I probably shouldn't be so hard on Poppy. She's only a mouse, small, helpless, talks a lot, jabbers, too cheerful most of the time, nothing but squirrel sludge and buzzer belch. But then she doesn't know the world, not like I do. She needs protecting. Actually, there's no one around who can protect her better than me. I've done it before. I could do it again. I know the world, know how it works. Not that she appreciates me. What was it she said about me? Old. I'm not old. Maybe I look old, but inside where it counts, I'm young. Young as her. Younger. I'm good looking too, in my way. Fine set of quills. And I'm smart, very smart. I wonder what she thinks of me. Really thinks. Wonder if she likes me. Really likes me. The way I like her. I suppose, in a way, I do like her. A lot. I can allow that. Point is, I could do a lot for her. More than she could guess. Show her the world. Teach her the way it works. Now, with her being off on her own, I'm always worried about her. But with me around, she'd never be in danger. I wonder if, just suppose, if she would, well, all she ever talks about is love and that ragweed. What did he know about love? Or her, for that matter. She told me he loved her. Love. Young folks think they're the only ones who love. Phooey. Nothing but slugs, plat, stewed, and weasel jam. Still, if she wanted me to, as a favor, I could love her. She'd probably like that. If she'd give me just the chance. Wonder what she'd say if I hinted at it or suggested it. I mean, maybe I could say, I love you, well, once, not too loudly, a little bit, just so she knew I wouldn't have to say it again. She'd like that. Then we could get married. There would be talk, she being young and me older. We wouldn't care, not us. She's got a mind of her own, and so do I. I bet she'll be thrilled. I'm big, powerful, smart, could give her lots of advice. She's a good listener, and it'll be good to have someone young around, that old smelly log of mine. She could clean it up a bit, a small bit, not too much. Yes, she'd like it. Yes, soon as I see her again, I'll tell her. Sort of. Some way. So ran Era's thoughts, stuck as he was, deep within the thicket. Oh my. Chapter 22. Poppy makes up her mind. Though Poppy waited at the tree, Erith did not return. Knowing how predictable her friend was, she kept asking herself how long she would wait. After all, she had been with the mice longer than she'd planned. That certainly would have irritated the old porcupine. She began to think he'd done what he threatened to do all along, trundle back to Dimwood Forest. Yet Poppy was quite aware her friend might be doing no more than taking a nap in a nearby log. Normally, Poppy would not have minded waiting, but she kept worrying that if she was going to save Rye, she had to act swiftly. Having nothing to do, she searched about the base of the cottonwood tree for some of Erith's quills to take back to the nest. When she failed to find any, she became fretful. The thought of sneaking into the beaver's lodge without the protection of quills was something she did not relish. Having no quills set off a nervous train of doubts in Poppy's mind. Would she be able to get into the lodge again? Was Rye's cage breakable? What if she or he got hurt? Would they be able to use the vine to get out of the lodge? And what if freeing Rye did bring greater harm to the rest of the family. Maybe Valerian and Clover were right. Maybe it was all too dangerous. The more Poppy thought, the more doubt she had about her plan. Suddenly, Poppy felt an intense desire to race back to Dimwood Forest and hide. There she would be safe and secure in the world she knew and loved best. It was bittersweet to recall that when she had begun this trip, she had been looking forward to a time of calm. Perhaps Edith was right. Perhaps it was better to be alone. And yet she had fallen in love with Rye. Moreover, she had promised to help him. How could she abandon him? She could not. No more than she could abandon her feelings. Too agitated to wait any longer for Edith, Poppy hurried down the hill and crept back into the nest. It was very crowded. Some 50 and more mice were there, most of whom she had not seen before. She caught hold of Thistle. "What's happening?" Poppy asked. "It's the rest of our family," Thistle explained. "Valerian added them to come hear about your plan." "Are they for it or against it?" Poppy asked. "They can't make up their minds," Thistle confided. "Poppy, I think we should do it, as long as we have quills to defend ourselves." "Thistle," Poppy confided, "I couldn't get the quills." Thistle blanched. "You couldn't?" "My friend, the porcupine, has disappeared." "Does that mean we can't rescue Rye?" Thistle asked with dismay. Poppy, feeling she had failed the young mouse, hardly knew what to say. "I'm not sure," she replied. Valerian approached. "Poppy, I sent word to the rest of the family about what you want to do," he informed her. "It's so important I felt everyone should be involved in the decision." "Attention, please," he cried. The mice hushed. "For those who don't know her yet," Valerian said by way of introduction, "this is Poppy. She comes to us from out east. She was a special friend of Ragweed's. That makes her a good friend of ours." To this there were murmurs of assent. "You've heard what happened to Rye and what choice we've been given," Valerian continued. "Move off somewhere and hopefully have Rye freed. Or try to save Rye on our own and take our chances with the beavers. To be honest with you, your mother and I think it would be best to move on. Poppy here wants to rescue Rye. Since this concerns the whole family, we thought it'd be wise for you to hear her for yourselves." Once again, Poppy found herself facing a world of gray, golden faces. Momentarily, she thought of sharing her anxieties, but feared that if the mice knew how nervous she was, they would never give her help. Instead, she simply explained her plan for freeing Rye. "Did you get those quills?" someone asked when she was done. "I'm afraid not." A nervous twitter paused over the family. "I do need some volunteers," Poppy said, almost timidly. Curly Doc shyly lifted a paw. "I'll go," he offered. "Me too," Thistle joined in. "What about the rest of you?" Poppy asked. "Can I have your approval?" Valerian cleared his throat. "Poppy, if you don't mind waiting outside, I think it would be easier for us to make up our minds. It was a discouraged Poppy who left the nest. Once above ground, she gazed down at the pond and the lodge where she knew Rye was being kept. Think of it, she told herself, as just another kind of dance. Thistle and Curly Dock emerged from the nest. Poppy looked at them expectantly. Thistle said, "They think you're making a mistake, but they won't keep you from trying. They're going to move, so we're on our own." Poppy considered her young friends. "Please," she said to them, "you're very brave to volunteer, but it will be hard, maybe impossible. I won't think less of you if you change your minds." "No way," Thistle said with a stubbornness that made Poppy recall Ragweed. "We're going with you." Curly Dock nodded in agreement. "All right then," Poppy said briskly as she tried to stir up her own energy. "The first thing we need to do is get a long piece of vine. Any idea where we can get one?" The mice exchanged looks. "Maybe up by the berry thicket," Curly Dock suggested. With Curly Dock leading the way, the three mice scampered up the hill. A short run brought them up and over the ridge. On the far side, they went down into a sunny hollow. Before them lay an overgrown thicket of berry bushes and flowering honeysuckle vines. The air was filled with sweetness. "We should be able to get a honeysuckle vine there," Thistle said. "They're long and tough." The three mice were soon deep within the thicket, cool and moist. It was perfumed by the almost overpowering, sticky, sweet scent of berries. "What about this vine?" Curly Dock asked. He was yanking on a green strand that twisted high over their heads and out of sight. "It really needs to be long and strong," Poppy urged. "It has to get us into the lodge and out." "This one looks okay," Thistle called from another spot. She was joined by the others. "Haul it in," Poppy said. While the others two worked to untangle the vine, she chewed through its roots. Then they began to pull. "It's stuck," Thistle announced. "Maybe it's tied to something," Curly Dock agreed. No matter how hard the three pulled, the vine would not come. "We can follow it along," Poppy suggested. Curly Dock was up front. Thistle was in the middle. Poppy came behind. As they followed the vine, they became increasingly spread out, losing sight of one another. Suddenly, from deep within the thicket, there was a frantic call from Curly Dock. "Help!" he cried. "Hurry, fast!" Poppy and Thistle dropped the vine and charged forward. Curly Dock was crouched down in terror. Looming over him was Erith. They found Erith. "Erith!" Poppy cried. "Poppy!" Erith snapped. "You simple smudge of a slimy slug! Where have you been?" Poppy grinned. "I've been busy, but I've been looking for you. What are you doing here?" "Never mind, just get me out of here. I'm stuck." He pulled back and forth, but his quills continued to hold him fast. "Erith," Poppy said, "this is Thistle and Curly Dock. They're brother and sister to Ragweed." Ragweed, Edith said. I'm sick of talk about ragweed. Just get me out. I need to talk to you. What about? Just get me out. Poppy turned to Curly Dock and Thistle. They had been looking on in great puzzlement. It's all right, she told them. He's perfectly harmless. Be better, Edith roared. I am not harmless. I have a terrible temper. I say dreadful things. I'm a selfish old coot who does what he wants, when he wants, and doesn't care what anyone else wants. He's really good, Poppy said. Don't listen to her. I'm bad, Edith screamed. Nevertheless, the three mice set to work chewing away on the vines that had ensnarled Edith. Even as they did, the impatient porcupine tossed and pulled, trying to free himself. Finally, with a snap, he broke loose. Now, Edith said, tell those friends of yours to beat it. I have something important to tell you. I'm sure they could listen. It's private, mushhead. Poppy looked to Thistle and Curly Dock, who, understanding, scampered off. I've got something to tell you, too, Poppy said when they were gone. You have to listen to me first, Edith insisted. What I've been thinking is... He stopped, suddenly bashful and tongue-tied. What is it? It's just that. What I think is... Now, see here, Poppy. I wish I had a piece of salt. Tell me what you wanted to say first. Are you sure? Push the barf button and take a bath. I just said so, didn't I? Well then, said Poppy, blushing with pleasure. Edith, I've fallen in love. You what? Edith whispered, aghast. Fallen in love? With whom? Edith asked. He was trembling with emotion. Poppy smiled. I know it must seem strange, but you see, I met, well, actually, he's Ragweed's brother. His name is Rye. And he's... But what's the matter? Thief! Crook! Edith yelled. I'll skewer him, whack him, mash him, turn him into skunk gunk. Edith, what are you talking about? You just think I'm too old, the porcupine ranted, rearing up and down as though bitten by ants. Too stupid. Too big, too sour, too me. Abruptly, he whirled around and began to rush away. But that's not true, Poppy called after him. It's not. And what did you want to tell me? Forget it, Edith called back. I'm leaving. Where are you going? To Dimwood Forest, pickle seed, he cried. Edith, Poppy called after him. Please don't go. I need you. You're on your own, traitor, the porcupine shouted as he tore from view. With great puzzlement, Poppy gazed after him. Something was surely the matter with her friend. With a sigh, she wished she understood him better. She glanced around, and to her great relief, she saw that in his fury, Erith had dropped some quills. She gathered them up and hurried to find Thistle and Curly Duck. Poor Erith. It's going to take him a while to get over this, don't you think? It's kind of sad that Poppy doesn't really even know what he was talking about. So the next chapter, chapter 23, the rescue begins. Do you think they'll be able to get Rye out? We'll find out tomorrow. Bye.